Mark is staring at a notification on his phone that shouldn't exist. It's a simple invite to a group chat called the Master Plan. But here's the thing. Mark wasn't supposed to see it. He wasn't even supposed to be in it. In the next 30 minutes, you're going to find out how a simple technical glitch turned a 10-year marriage into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Because what Mark found in that chat wasn't just a betrayal, it was an execution. Mark and Sarah were that couple. You know the one. High school sweethearts, lived in a quiet suburb in Connecticut, shared a joint bank account, and never kept secrets. Or so he thought. Mark worked as a software consultant, a guy who lived in the details. Sarah was the social butterfly, the heart of their friend group. Life was predictable. It was safe. It was boring in the best way possible. But then the glitch happened. It was a Tuesday evening. Sarah was in the shower. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, buzzing incessantly. Usually, Mark would ignore it. He wasn't the jealous type, but the buzzing didn't stop. It was a frantic, rhythmic vibration that felt like a warning. He picked it up to silence it, and that's when he saw his own name in a notification. Sarah had added him to a group, but she hadn't meant to. In her rush, she'd clicked Mark instead of her sister, Maria. Both names started with M. Both were at the top of her recent contacts. It was a 1 in a million mistake. Mark opened the chat. He expected to see plans for a surprise party or maybe a thread about a girls' trip. Instead, the first message he read made his stomach drop through the floor. It was from Sarah's best friend, Chloe. It said, "Is the transfer done yet? If we don't move the last $50K tonight, he's going to notice the quarterly statement." Mark froze. $50,000? Their joint savings was their lifeblood. It was the down payment for the house they wanted to build. It was their future. He scrolled up. The further he went, the harder it became to breathe. This wasn't a recent development. This had been going on for months. The group chat was a play-by-play manual on how to dismantle a man's life without him ever feeling the blade. Sarah, Chloe, and 2 other friends were in it. They were discussing shell accounts. They were talking about a clean break, and most terrifyingly, they were laughing about how oblivious Mark was. He heard the shower water click off. His heart was hammering against his ribs so hard it felt like it might crack a bone. He quickly deleted the invite on his own phone, marked the messages as unread on hers, and put the device back exactly where he found it. He walked into the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, and stood there in the dark. When Sarah walked out, wrapped in a towel and smiling, she looked like the woman he loved. But as he looked at her, he realized he was looking at a stranger who was currently stealing his life. He didn't say a word that night. He couldn't. If he spoke, he'd scream. He needed to know how deep this went. He needed to know if this was just about money, or if there was something even darker lurking in the digital shadows of that chat. The next morning, Mark did something he'd never done in a decade of marriage. He didn't go to work. He parked his car 2 blocks away, walked back to the house, and waited for Sarah to leave for her yoga class. As soon as her SUV pulled out of the driveway, he was inside. He went straight for her old laptop in the den. It was synced to her messages. He sat down, his hands shaking, and opened the master plan. He scrolled to the very beginning. The first message was dated 6 months ago. It was from Sarah. It read, "I'm done being a passenger in my own life. I want out, but I'm taking my half and his half too. He owes me for the years I wasted." The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional arson. As he read, the layers of the plot began to peel back. They weren't just moving money, they were creating a paper trail of bad investments that Mark had supposedly authorized. They were forging his digital signature on documents that shifted liability for a failing startup onto his shoulders alone. If she left now, she'd walk away with nearly $400,000, and he'd walk away with a mountain of debt and a ruined credit score. But then he saw a message that made his blood run cold. It was from Chloe. She asked, "What about the backup plan? If he finds out before the final transfer, do we use the recordings?" Recordings? Mark looked around the room. He felt a sudden prickly sensation on the back of his neck. Was he being watched? Was his own home a trap? He spent the next 3 hours sweeping the house. He found them. 3 small, high-end hidden cameras, one in the bedroom, one in the living room, and one in his home office. They were positioned to catch him in moments of frustration. He realized they were trying to bait him. They wanted him to lose his temper. They wanted a video of him shouting or breaking something to use as leverage in a domestic violence claim. It was the ultimate insurance policy to ensure he'd get nothing in the divorce. He sat on the floor of his office, holding a tiny lens in his hand, and felt a wave of cold, calculated fury wash over him. The man who had walked into the house that morning was gone. The man sitting on the floor now was a consultant, and consultants are very good at solving problems. He realized he couldn't just confront her. If he did, she'd hit the nuke button. She'd transfer the rest of the money, file the false claims, and he'd be finished. He had to play the game. He had to be the oblivious husband for just a little while longer. He put the camera back exactly where it was, went to his car, drove to the office, and acted like everything was normal. But inside, he was building a counter-strike. The first thing he did was call an old contact from his tech days, a guy named Elias who specialized in forensic accounting and digital security. He didn't tell Elias he was a victim. He told him he was auditing a potential merger. Over the next week, Mark lived a double life. By day, he worked with Elias to trace where the money was going. It wasn't just staying in a local account. Sarah was funneling it through a series of offshore crypto wallets managed by a consultant who turned out to be Chloe's brother. They were laundering his life savings in real time. By night, Mark was the perfect husband. He brought home flowers, he cooked dinner, he talked about their future house. He watched as Sarah smiled at him, all while she was likely texting the group chat under the table, mocking him for being so easy to fool. One night, while they were watching a movie, Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smirked. "Just Chloe," she said. "She's having guy drama again." Mark smiled back. "Poor Chloe. She's lucky to have a friend like you to help her through it." He felt sick, but he didn't let it show. He knew that the final transfer, the last $100,000, was scheduled for Friday. That was her deadline. That was when she planned to serve him papers and disappear. But Mark had a deadline of his own. Elias had found the kill switch. Because the money was being moved into crypto wallets that Sarah didn't fully understand, she was relying on a specific software interface provided by Chloe's brother. Mark realized that if he could gain access to that interface, he didn't just have the power to stop the transfer, he had the power to redirect it. But he didn't just want to take his money back. That wasn't enough. He wanted her to feel the exact moment the floor dropped out from under her. He wanted her to understand that the oblivious husband had been the smartest person in the room the entire time. On Thursday, the day before the big move, Mark made his move. He knew Sarah was meeting the girls for a final planning brunch. He waited until she was gone, then he went to work. He didn't go to the bank. He went to his office and opened a secure line to Elias. "Are we in?" Elias said. "We're in. But Mark, if you do this, there's no going back. You're not just taking your money, you're taking everything they've pooled in that account. Chloe's cut, the brothers' fees, all of it." "They wanted to play with fire," Mark said. "I'm just providing the gasoline." Mark didn't just redirect his $50,000. He tracked the origin points of all the funds in that offshore account. It turned out Sarah wasn't the only one using this method. Chloe and her brother were running a boutique divorce prep service for several wealthy women in the area. There was over $2 million in that account. Mark felt a moment of hesitation. This was dangerous. But then he remembered the camera in his bedroom. He remembered the messages laughing at his stupidity. The hesitation vanished. He didn't take the $2 million. That would make him a criminal. Instead, he did something much more surgical. He wrote a script that would trigger when Sarah initiated the final transfer. The script would do 3 things. First, it would divert every cent of the joint savings back into a locked trust account in his name only. Second, it would send an encrypted file with every message, photo, and plan from the master plan group chat to the husbands of every woman involved in the scheme. And third, it would send a very specific tip to the IRS regarding Chloe's brother and his unregistered financial services. Friday morning arrived. The air in the house felt heavy.
Sarah was acting twitchy, looking at her watch every 5 minutes. "You okay, honey?" Mark asked, sipping his coffee. "Yeah," she said, her voice tight. "Just a lot on my mind. I think I'm going to go for a long drive today. Need some air." "That sounds like a great idea," Mark said. "In fact, why don't you take the scenic route? I have a feeling today is going to be a day you'll never forget." She looked at him, a flash of suspicion crossing her eyes. "What does that mean?" Mark just smiled. "Just that life is full of surprises, Sarah." She left the house at 10 a.m. Mark sat in his office, his laptop open, watching the digital ledger. 10:30, the group chat was exploding. Sarah was telling them she was pulling the trigger. 10:45, the transfer was initiated. $100,000 moved from their joint account into the ether. 10:46, Mark's script executed. He watched the screen as the funds looped back, diverted, and settled into